Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. And now, let's start the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bomb Squad. Back on video, just like I don't know what things. I wasn't prepared for my own opening, but welcome, guys. We should be out of Halloween, but this movie is Halloween adjacent. It's kind of a horror, a little bit. So
Yeah,
today
yeah.
it'll fit either way. I think
It's
it
kind
should
of a
be.
horror a little bit.
I
It's
mean,
extremely
at
horrific.
the end, something
Yeah.
bad happens, but the rest of it's just about a cool dude hanging out with his
Yeah,
buddies.
just living his own life how he sees fit.
Yeah. So today we're covering the 2010 film I Saw the Devil, which is an Asian film. It's directed by Jin Woon Kim. It's written by Jin Woon Kim and Park Hoon Jung, and it also stars Lee Bang Kyung, who, if you know, we've covered before when we found out that GI Joe Rise of Cobra isn't as good as we originally had been hyping up for years since we saw it in theaters. But yeah,
Yeah.
we were like, "Oh, this one's fun. It's great." And then we saw, and we're like, "Oh, never mind."
Well,
Me and William also saw GI Joe, but for $1. And William
yeah.
saw in real life the expectations I set for terrible movies and how they disappoint you.
I mean, I knew what I was getting into. I had done some independent research of my own taste.
Perfect. So, Josh, no, let's do William. William, what's this movie about?
Um, this movie is about a secret agent, which sounds ridiculous, but is actually very cool.
Yeah.
Whose fiance or wife is brutally murdered by a serial killer. And so then the secret agent takes the law into his own hands and begins sort of a cat and mouse game with his significant other's murderer. And the stakes rise as the film goes.
Yeah, it really never stops. Okay, so I've
Yeah.
seen this movie, and I had been wanting to cover it. William had wanted to see it, and it's leaving Hulu on Halloween, so we decided to cover it. But to the newbie guys, what did you think of this film?
I thought it was awesome. I thought, yeah, it was on Netflix like maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah,
And I tried to watch it after work several times, but I just always fell asleep for some reason. Like, not because
yeah,
it's bad or anything, but I thought it was like the way that it sounds, like it's just like, how can this movie be like, where's it gonna go? Like, how's it 2.5
right.
hours long? But it really keeps the story interesting, and it's horrifically violent.
Yeah,
But like, we'll get into it later. But just like the way they pull everything off, like really made what should have been like an hour movie like really compelling for the whole 2 hours.
yeah, definitely. And it's that. Yeah, it is that thing. And as we get into it, I will say my initial thoughts is this is one of my favorite horror films, revenge film. It's probably my favorite revenge film, and we'll
Yeah.
get into why after a bit. But also, yes, two things are against why I don't watch this movie all the time. The first thing, it's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
And the second thing,
it is a fucking intense ride. Like there's no like, oh, I'm gonna watch this and like play video games. It's like, oh yeah, this is fucking horrific.
Yeah, like on when we were going to do the recording a couple days ago, and told my wife, I was just like, "Yeah, we're gonna watch this movie called I Saw the Devil. If you want to watch it with me." And then I was like, "It might be kind of intense though, so who's to say?" And when I was watching it this morning, I was just like, "Yeah, I'm fucking glad I watched this by myself. This movie's so fucked up."
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think my wife would have liked it either, to be honest.
Yeah,
I also watched it alone, and yeah, no, it's good. It is. It's a bit long, in
Yeah.
the tooth, but I think it's good. I think it's very. It's kind of like it's almost like a morality tale. Like it very much like kind of gives you the lesson.
Mhm.
yeah, I would say
But it
so.
also kind of switches up like you meet like one thing that really like stuck out to me like when I was like, oh, it's only like an hour in and like he already knows who the killer is. Like where
Right,
is
right.
this gonna go? You know,
Right.
like
Yeah,
yeah, like how is he gonna get away? Not really. You know, it's kind of
Yeah.
a weird yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's
and I'll
interesting.
I'll say for the first point, like, and I, you know me, I'm all about making and watching under hour and a half minute movies. But
totally.
for this movie, I don't think it wastes 1 second of film. Like a perfect example is the opening. The opening takes a long time. It's this girl. Her car has been broken, or she has a flat tire. She's waiting for the tow truck. This guy comes and he's helping her. He's calling her fiance and he's saying, "Oh, my car's broken down." They're both in agreement that he should just wait for the tow truck and not let
Mhm.
this guy help and kind of like, don't talk to strangers. Things. They're both smart enough to like realize that. And eventually, you find out that the guy is a killer and he takes her, but it takes a long time. Like she's on the phone with him. He's like singing her songs, and the guy's like checking the car. Then he comes around, then he talks to her, then he goes, then he comes back, and we're really just
Yeah,
watching it. But I think like if you don't see all those actions taking place, it kind of takes away from some of the impact. And they real like this is one of those movies where even if a character is introduced and killed in that same scene, the filmmakers don't want you to doesn't want anyone to just be collateral damage that you kind of forget about in a second. And because
right.
of that, the longer scenes really get you to know the characters, so when anything happens to them, it makes it more horrific and it makes it really hard to you think of like we just watched those horror movies that are fun when people get killed, like even Halloween Kills, like someone gets killed brutally and you're kind of like, yeah, kill him,
Yeah,
Michael. Yeah, I never feel that in this movie. I'm always like, this is garbage. Like I feel so sick.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really, I think, especially for that first scene, like, because they don't really go that much into the relationship between the secret agent and his wife. And so like they like really keep the camera on her and they show just like how like sweet and like nice she is and like
Yeah.
how
I
like
did enjoy.
living,
She's
I
like,
guess.
"Oh, I love children. I just like drove
Yeah,
by like
the
an
orphans are
orphanage or
so
whatever."
cute.
Yeah, like I'm sure happy to live a long, full life after this.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you always remember how she was in that first scene, like throughout the whole movie, like whenever he's taking
Yeah. Yeah.
vengeance. And I think just because, like you were saying, you spend that much time with her, and also kind of what it does is like, like a lot of horror movies start off with like the perfect family
Hmm.
moving into a new house or something
Hmm.
like that. Like this really just did all of that. Like it showed this like great scenario that just gets like brutalized, but it did it in like one kind of long scene. But it really
Right.
starts off with like that whoosh of positive because everything else is just going to be as far down as you could possibly
Yeah.
go. And I
Yeah.
think that spending so much time with those types of scenes really helped that. So
And
I agree.
I think he even plays with the audience expectation because we're so used to seeing characters like, that first kill, they get killed and then they cut. And like we spend so much time with that girl, even though I've seen this movie, I was like, wait, does she survive? Like, do they catch?
Right.
And it's like, oh no, she does not. Like, she doesn't survive. And she says
Yeah.
something that I think is a masterful stroke of the filmmaker. I don't know if I want to spoil it yet, but I'll spoil the beginning and then we'll cut to the reveal later. But she tells the guy like, "Oh, don't kill me. Um, I'm pregnant." And like and then like he just bashes her over the head and that's the end of it. And it's
Yeah.
such like a terrible like and then the movie starts and you're like, that is like I know what movie I'm here for now that this is started,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, okay. I also think, William, what did you think of this? I kind of got Fincher vibes from this movie.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it was like the tone was kind of Finchery, where it's
Hmm.
like super dark and but it also has like this like weird sense of humor even in like
Yeah.
the worst parts. Like when you meet like the cannibal friend, it's like there's still like some like funny things happening to him, like when his hand is like stuck on a piece of wood and he's like trying to pull it off, like just like the
Right.
way he looks is just like so goofy
Yeah, yeah.
that you're like, this is like I'm having a really fun time, even though this
I
is like
shouldn't be. Yeah.
so awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and
And
so, oh, go ahead.
I think that Fincher does that same kind of thing too, where like he like makes every like little character like really important and like really gives them their time to shine.
Yeah, yeah. And I,
Like the guy in Fight Club that has like the weird head brace on, who like looks at that bar.
oh
Like
yeah,
it's like a random
the
character, but
bartender.
it's just
Yeah.
like yeah, it's like you remember who he is because they just spend that time building that up.
Right, right. And I think like yeah, it does that thing. I mean, there's so many Fincher copycats and they kind of miss that like almost grotesque humor that Fincher has. And this movie kind of brings it with it. And I think this is the closest I've ever seen to someone who isn't Fincher do a Fincher type film. And so I really
Yeah,
enjoyed it. And just to kind of like so the serial killer kills the guy's fiance or wife and then they find the body and then the cop what he or the secret agent what he does is he finds like all the people in the area that could possibly be a suspect and then he just starts chasing them down and beating the shit out of them to figure out if they're actually a suspect and
yeah.
like he'll capture them and he'll be and one of the things I really like about this is that the martial arts in this movie are top notch
They
like
were. He was so cool. The
yeah.
main character is a fucking badass.
Yeah, you think because it's so brutal, you think it's gonna be like the quick kind of Batman Begins, like he just beats the shit out of him and then he goes. But no, every fight scene is choreographed so well, and like they'll try to stab him and he'll dodge and catch the hand and then kick him with his foot. It's like this guy
Yeah.
is a badass, you know?
He even like spun on like a tree trunk and
Yeah,
like did like a loop kick. Like it was just like what the but it's because he's a secret agent.
yeah,
Like they
exactly.
made it work.
He's legit a secret
Yeah.
agent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so he goes and he finds his and like there's one scene and again, you I mean you don't really feel for killers, but like he even like he kind of pushes the line constantly because he meets the first guy and he kind of like ties him up and he starts beating him up and then he doesn't have any pants on and the secret agent just starts like wailing on his dick with like a hammer and then
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
cuts and it's like there's cops and they're walking down the street and they're like, oh yeah, he turned himself in and he like wants to go to jail
Right.
and
Which
like
is as terrifying. Yeah.
yeah, and you know exactly why because of the fact that yeah, he's been brutally beaten like and
Yeah.
like the secret agent is really good about every time he goes and meets someone, he lets them know that like there's not going to be a relief. Like I'm not even once he finds out, like he's beating up the first guy, he finds out that it's not the guy who killed his wife, and he's like, oh, okay, and then that's when he beats the shit out of his balls because it's like even these guys who even though they're not the suspects, they're still terrible people, and so he
Right.
feels no remorse for them at all, and so it's like, oh, this is like again, it's constantly making you question whether how far is too far
Right.
and like it's just kind of like showing you how far this guy's been broken and you feel for him every single time, you know.
I mean,
Yeah.
he immediately goes too far. So
Right.
he
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
But
he doesn't ramp up. He like starts too far.
well and yeah,
Yeah.
and it's that
Absolutely.
thing where it's like the whole movie's asking you like does the means justify the end, because like I said, every character in this movie that he beats up is like a terrible person.
Yeah.
And like I think the first guy, he's either like jerking off to he's like doing like they catch him doing something against
Yeah. He's watching porn.
he's
But it's like
watching
just regular porn,
yeah. But yeah,
which was kind of a funny touch.
I know it's just normal. It's the one thing he
Yeah.
does normal. And but he's killed two people, like he confesses afterwards. And
Right.
so it's kind of like, okay, well, did he like of course he went too
See,
far, but yeah.
I got the sense with that he had the first guy confess just so that way he can like play his like game when he finds the real killer. Like it's like, okay, the police have stopped looking, but that was my assumption. Like he's like, okay, they've got this guy in jail for it. Now I can focus on my personal.
Oh, but he doesn't
projects.
confess to the fiance's death. He confesses to 2 other murders that he did on the side. Yeah.
Oh,
He was just so
okay.
freaked out that he confessed to the murders he had planned.
Yeah, for protection.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so then he goes and finds, there's 4 of them, and he goes and finds the second guy, and it's not the second guy. And then it is the third guy. And like, again, there's like that brutal part where when the serial killer kills the fiance at the beginning, her like ring falls off. And then you see him, and again, like you keep watching this guy kind of, he like takes this little girl, and you spend so much time, and he's like talking to her, but he's clearly like, that scene is so disturbing. He like takes them to like his little farm, and
Yeah.
he's like talking to her, but you can tell that he's just talking at her, and it doesn't
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter what she says. It's just like his rationale in his head, you know?
Right. He's like, why can't I like you? Like,
Yeah.
why does he decide to say
He's
I can't
he's
like
kind of
you?
an incel type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like a bus driver, and he's like, one of his main conquests is like one of the girls in the bus. And again, this movie is not like a happy movie. You know?
But it's also like, you know what I do kind of like is that I feel like if this was an American movie, you wouldn't have like seen the killer's face. It would have been like Zodiac, where it's like, oh, you just see shots of him behind, and like, who
Yeah.
is he? But in this, like, you see him in the first 4 minutes. He's like, yeah,
Right.
this-
Yeah.
I'm a killer,
the
you know. And he's
nature.
like very, very mundane looking person, and it's almost
Yeah.
like he's so like generic looking that almost like makes it worse. It's like, oh yeah, it could
Yeah.
just be anyone's like a psychopath,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And
I
he-
felt that a lot too.
He also does
Yeah.
that thing where, like, I think in an American movie, like when he gets that girl, he like, you know, he's telling her like, oh, why shouldn't I do this? And he's like, oh, I'm gonna make it quick. And then he starts to rape her, and then after a little bit, that's when the guy comes in and like attacks him. But I feel like if this had been an American movie, they wouldn't have let her get raped. But the whole point of this movie is like, this guy's lost it, but the secret agent has also lost it.
Right.
And so they want to show you that like every day that the secret agent doesn't take down this killer rapist guy is a day that killer rapist guy could kill and rape someone else. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, even when he's on the run, it's never like, oh, he's
Yeah.
stopping himself. Like, he is constantly
That's what
on.
he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's his main form of recreation.
hmm And he's
Yeah.
like, he really does feel like an addict, where if he gets the opportunity, he's going to take it, even if he's being hunted by a serial agent, you know?
Right. What one little thing too that I liked a lot was like it's like, so yeah, the serial killer is like, he gets as much or even more screen time
Mhm.
than the secret agent does. So like you really get to know him. But then there's that part where he like plays guitar just for like a minute,
Right.
and it's like I feel like the movie did like a really good job of like, because he's definitely not likable, and he's obviously
Right.
a huge piece of shit.
Yeah.
But they gave him like just enough humanity to where
Mhm.
like you kind of don't mind watching him. Like,
Yeah.
not like you like want to see him like kill somebody or whatever, but it's like the guy who plays him is like just so entertaining that it's
Right.
like you don't mind watching this horrible person,
Yeah.
and it's like he has a better time in the movie than the secret agent does.
Right.
Like he's off like hanging out with his friends that are also fucked up,
Yeah.
and just like drinking drinks when he wants to drink a drink, or eating a strawberry if he wants to eat a strawberry. And it's like they make him kind of like the antithesis of like the secret agent in a way. Like the secret agent
Yeah.
kind of like bent on like rules and destruction, and he has like one goal, and he like is driven by this one thing, whereas the serial killer is just kind of like a guy who does whatever he wants. He's
Right.
just sort of like chaos in a way.
He's just
Yeah.
vibing.
And
Yeah, exactly. He
Yeah.
just vibes like all the time throughout the movie. He's like not worried about anything.
yeah. And I really
He's not
like
even
that.
being, like split between the two.
Yeah, and I think it also works on the other hand, where it's like, you know, a lot of times, even in real life, when you hear about serial killers, you're like, well, how could they get away with like, how did they not get caught when they're this unhinged? But showing stuff like that kind of shows you like, oh, he knows how to like turn it off, kind of. He
Yeah.
like, and so it makes it helps like you not want to like be annoyed when you're watching him, but it also, once he switches and goes into like wanting what he wants, it makes it that much scarier because you know that he
Right.
knows how to act normal, and he just
Yeah.
chooses not to, and it just makes him terrifying.
Right, because like in so many ways he probably is normal.
Yeah,
Like he likes the same food that we like. He likes, smoking cigarettes or like whatever.
Yeah.
His,
also is
his friend does not like the food that we like.
Right. Well,
Oh, that's true. Not his friend. Not his friend.
Before we get to the friend, so the guy beats him up, and he puts like a tracker in, which is I think the most ridiculous part of the whole movie. But he puts a tracker in him. He makes him eat a tracker, which is not that ridiculous that he's tracking him the whole time. But he can hear in the tracker, which is like this is like
Yeah.
007 shit.
Yeah, it's
Right,
fine.
right.
It's silly,
But it
I-
works
I,
for the
I like
movie,
how
yeah.
silly it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so after he beats him up and gives him the tracker, he lets him go. And the guy's like, what the fuck was that? Like, he's so confused that he like kind of goes out and he like goes to the doctor and he's like making up lies. And then he meets this nurse and he kind of kidnaps her too. And he's like gonna do stuff to her. And then the guy comes back and he beats the shit out of him again.
Yeah.
And then he
And even
tells
tells
him,
like the nurse, he's like, "Stay here because he's gonna need some help."
yeah, which is the
I'm not
most
done.
unhinged part where he tells her,
Right.
because she's been like victimized by him and he's telling her essentially, oh no, you don't get to leave, like to me you're also kind of nothing,
Yeah.
and I need,
Totally.
yeah, you're whatever I need you to be. And in a way, again, it's just drawing that parallel
Mhm.
where the serial killer's clearly worse because what he wants is so much worse, but this guy is also kind of has that same, like, he's so driven by his urges. It's just
Yeah.
that his urge is to get revenge on this guy.
Right. It's like it takes the whole like the classic theme of like cops versus robbers, like what will cops do to catch the robbers, but just to the most extreme you could possibly
Yeah,
take it to.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
constantly reiterating that fact.
You know what I
Yeah.
like to, because you think like, oh, he has a list of 4 guys, and he's the 3rd guy, right? So you're like,
Mhm.
okay, like the plot's moved on.
Yeah,
But then when the serial killer's getting away,
yeah,
he runs
does.
into the 4th guy,
Yeah.
like in like a
Oh,
taxi
yeah.
where like, and
They're
they're
gonna
gonna
rob
they're gonna
him.
rob and kill
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like you didn't have to do this, but you're
But it's
clearly just like
cool,
having
yeah.
fun. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
like, it's like it's
Because-
kind of like silly in that way of like, oh, of course, let's wrap this part up
Well,
too.
and
You
because
know? And that's a
again,
great scene.
yeah,
you
when,
know,
when he stabs the guys that are in the
yeah, where he's like
stuff.
fighting them at the same time
Yeah,
with a knife.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so cool. And it's like spinning around like the driver's seat to the back seat.
yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah, it's one of those like, how did they do that? You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
And it's so cool because I did like, because he has all the pictures on the wall, like the secret agent of who he's taking down. And we already know who the killer is, so we know which one he's going to get to when he gets to 3. But
Yeah.
I did wonder when he did it, I was like, oh, what's going to happen to that 4th guy? So it is kind of
Right.
cool that they kind of bring it back.
right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the rest of the movie is that guy, like the serial killer, like running off, and this guy constantly going up to catch him, and then it really does become like a cat and mouse game of the serial killer trying to figure out what's happening to him, and the agent like just keeping track of him, and like
Yeah.
after he gets that second girl, he gets into, I think, my favorite part of the movie, where he meets like his friend who's a cannibal.
A cannibal
Yeah.
with a mansion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
should say.
and a super
Yeah.
hot girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well, and also like he doesn't quite. He's like, what's going on here? And then when
Yeah.
he meets the cannibal's almost like the audience surrogate being like, oh no, like you probably
Mhm.
killed someone he cares about.
Right.
And he's doing to you what you do to other. It's like he's spelling it out for the serial killer,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
laughing about it. And it's like, okay, he's enjoying this as much as we are, even though we shouldn't be. It's,
Right.
that kind
Right.
of thing.
Seeing eye to
Yeah,
eye with
yeah, yeah.
cannibal,
Yeah.
but we are.
And
Yeah,
that-
it's like you shouldn't sympathize with the cannibal, but you do in that scene. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
yeah.
He's right. He's correct.
Yeah, and that cannibal, it's Mung Shang Chao, and he plays it so well. Like he's
Mhm.
having so much fun in the role, and again, like he's eating the meat while he's like laughing and he's like spitting,
Yeah.
and it's just like such a gross, fun scene. And it's that David Fincher, like none of this should be as funny or as entertaining as it is, but
Right.
the way it kind of works, it just does,
Yeah. You can't stop watching it.
Yeah.
And it's like they somehow stop you because like there's like Hostel, like where you
Mhm.
watch it and you're just like, this is just gross. Like this is
Right.
disgusting. Like I feel bad because everything that's happening I don't really want to see.
Right.
But this one, it's like they somehow still make it that bad, but like just things like that guy being so into the cannibal role and like
Yeah.
all the characters just being so entertaining that like you don't really mind watching it. Like once again,
Yeah.
like this movie just somehow allows you to like it just somehow makes all this grotesqueness like palatable. But at
Right.
the same time
Right.
it's not. But at the same time you're like,
Yeah.
whoa.
It yeah, it doesn't shy away, but you're never like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like you always want to see what's
Right.
gonna come next. And
Yeah.
also, there's that scene because like the secret agent eventually shows up and the cannibal like tells him something like, well, I was wondering about you. You know, like it's just
Yeah.
like such a weird exchange between like these 3 or 4 people in the house, and none of them have any regard for human life. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like there's no hold bars going on in that. And I think the secret
Yeah.
agent tells him something like, "Oh, I'm gonna start with your hands, and then I'm gonna go your legs, and then your head. That's how you do it, right?" And it's like,
Yeah.
why is everyone in this movie such a weird badass who I don't want to see in real life? You know?
I know. And I love how the cannibal had like a weird like he didn't even have like a deep freezer of like body
Hmm.
parts. He just had like a clear refrigerator. And he's
Yeah.
just like looking through legs and arms and he's just like, I ate all the guts.
Yeah.
I guess I better get a live one. And he just like pulls some girl out of a closet.
Right.
It's just like, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
dude, like, they don't explain like because I was like, oh, it's the girl, and like from before, it's like no, different girl. That was just his girlfriend. They're
right.
not
Yeah,
really explained, you know.
I
Just
couldn't tell if that was like the girl who was in the closet's sister and like they had like taken over their house maybe, but then that wouldn't explain all of the butcher
but
gear that he
she's kind
had.
of around,
Yeah.
like she's not like locked up or anything. I don't know. I
Yeah.
almost like that they don't really give you
I
much
know, I
with
do
that.
too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like what is because like she whenever because there was one part where the cannibal and the serial killer get into kind of a spat
Hmm.
and the cannibal's like, "Oh, serial killer, you're crazy" or something, and the serial killer's like, "What the fuck did you say to me?"
Yeah.
And then like the cannibal's like, I don't know why I cry when I get so
Oh.
tense. Like, it's just so weird. And then like the girlfriend like looks at the cannibal and she's just like, oh, like she seems like
Yeah,
uncomfortable and scared. So it's like,
Right. Right.
is she a hostage? Is
yeah, or is she
they
like
love
just
each other?
like kind of like
But
this
then
is her
she,
life.
yeah, but then she
Yeah.
wants to take out the secret agent. So it
Yeah, right.
and I kind of love that about it. Like so much of the movie feels like a world that exists without the audience. You know, like the
Yeah.
cannibal and his girlfriend. Like you could tell that whoever wrote, like when they wrote it, they really thought about the characters,
Hmm.
and so everything feels like so established already walking into it.
Right. Like you believe everything, even though
Yeah.
it's just the craziest shit.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
also like it's such a weird because he's like this like kind of down on his luck bus driver whose like family thinks he's kind of a loser
Mhm.
and like
Yeah.
and he just happens to be friends with like a millionaire cannibal who and
Yeah.
they're kind of like, oh, remember when we were in like a militant group together and we wanted to like destroy like society, and then he kind of like
Yeah.
laughs about it. It's like, but that's kind of all you get. You
Right,
know,
yeah,
you
just
just
all
you're
the
just like, all right, they were kind of like killers together, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah.
Now they're just buds
Right, right.
with
And
a
then
shared
Yeah.
income.
again, that scene is cool because like the secret agent is like fighting his way through the house, and they're like, you see how them handle like they have guns and they have like cleavers, and it's literally like a scene from the raid. It's such a cool scene.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where he's waiting for the serial killer to shoot a gun, and he runs and he hits the serial killer right in time for the serial killer to miss the bullet, and it goes
Yeah.
off behind him. And the whole time I was just like, the choreography needed to do this shot, you know?
Yeah.
And it just, I mean, it looks, and I think, you know what? I think that kind of helps. Like, the movie's one of my favorite cinematography wise movies. And I think that really helps you kind of like process a lot of the gore and a lot of the more grotesque stuff. Because again, like Fincher, even though you're seeing this horrible things, the framing and the lighting look so pretty. You know?
Yeah. It always looks so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Like every time I look at the shot, especially when they frame the hero, I'm like, yeah, this is such a cool shot. Like, who choreographed this?
Yeah.
This is amazing, you know?
Yeah, there's that part whenever he walks into the serial killer's garden for the first time,
Mhm.
and the serial killer like turns the lights on, and like the lights are like going down the hallway, and like the last one turns on top of the like the main hero, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah,
It's and like the costume design, like everything just adds to how good it looks, and it just like I think again that's probably one of the reasons that it makes it so bearable. Is just like everything is so on point, like the acting,
yeah,
the cinematography, the sound design. It's
hmm
just so good the whole time.
yeah, yeah.
Like
It's
it
really
was,
well balanced in like
yeah,
every way.
yeah. It was so good. I didn't even take notes. I just kind of,
Yeah, yeah,
I was
Got
just
to like
into it.
six. I was just
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I did take a note because I was like, I do want to remember this like later during the chase. At one point, the cops walking up to like a crime scene that the serial killer's already escaped from. The cops like, you can't come in here, and he just immediately starts fighting five
Oh,
cops
yeah,
just to get through. Like he's just
yeah,
so pissed at that
yeah.
point.
And it
yeah,
I was
doesn't
like,
yeah,
really
God,
work. Like eventually they just keep adding cops, but he keeps trying to like get them.
yeah,
yeah,
but it's like, but that could have been just a very normal, like,
Mm.
you're too late scene. They're like, no,
Yeah.
let's
He
have him
pushes
fight like
past
five
them.
guys
Yeah.
for a few
right,
minutes,
yeah,
you
Yeah.
know?
And again, like comparing it again to American cinema, at the very beginning, like I said, the his fiance tells him that that she's pregnant. And I feel like if this had been an American movie, we would have found that out right away just to give him more sympathy. But
yeah,
he doesn't find out that she's pregnant until well into the movie when the serial killer tells him. And he even like
yeah,
mocks him for it. And it just makes it that much more brutal. Like again, like every once in a while you feel bad for the serial killer, but they make sure to bring that like sympathy right out of you.
right. Like he's definitely still a sociopath for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And like he really and I think that's again, it's one of those things where he's trying to punish this guy who loves violence and like even if it's happening to him, he kind of appreciates it. And he has no like pain like he has no pain threshold. He just likes
yeah,
violent things. And so a lot of the movie is just like the guy trying to figure out or like it's just like them trying to figure out like what is a suitable punishment for this person.
right.
Right. Well, and it's kind of like he even says to him at the end, he's like, oh, I've already like won. You can't do anything worse than what I've done to you. And he's right. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is correct.
totally.
It's like you should have just
Well,
like killed him the second
yeah.
he gets close, but he
We
doesn't.
won't.
Yeah,
I won't
yeah,
ruin it because it's so amazing. But I will say that it goes into contention as to whether that final act was enough. But
yeah.
yeah,
He definitely gave it his best shot
yeah,
for sure.
he got as
He
close as
did,
anyone's gonna
he
get.
did a good job.
He did it in a way that where you're like, oh, I wish Saw movies were smart like this.
And
You
you know
know,
what?
Yeah,
And
like
totally.
again, it's that thing where like Hostel, even Saw. I like the first Saw, but it's what Saw
Mhm.
becomes. But like the torture porn kind of way that movies became for a
Yeah,
while, and it's like this one and even Audition. I think it like the fact that this movie and Audition are trying to say something as opposed to like, oh, it's just kind of a killer and a hostel, in the middle of Europe. That's like
right.
it makes the gore that much worse because you feel for the characters, but
hmm
also I don't mind it as much because it feels like it serves a purpose other than to just be gore.
Yeah, I would say that's true. It definitely brings it to a different level
Yeah, yeah,
instead of
definitely.
just for shock value. Like I didn't
Hmm.
really feel like it was like trying to shock me that much.
Right,
Like it felt like everything that happened was shocking, but it didn't. I never felt like the director was like winking at us from behind the camera,
right,
or was
right.
like, "This one's really gonna get him."
Yeah,
It was just kind of like, "This is what might happen in this scene,"
yeah.
even though it's like the craziest shit once again. But it's like it never felt like, in a weird way, it never felt like it was gratuitous or like
yeah,
exploitative,
I kind of get
even
like
though it kind of was.
it's like and this is a weird kind of example, but like kind of like Starship Troopers, where it's like no, it wants you to think like these are all fascists, but it wants you to like be engaged and like watching it and like kind of
Right.
like entertained. Whereas
Right.
like something like Funny Games is like, oh, you shouldn't enjoy any of this. Like,
Yeah,
like
you're
we're
weird.
making it boring on purpose.
Right.
Yeah,
Fuck you, you know.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it's
How
like
long can you
yeah,
stand this?
Yeah, because I mean, I've watched Funny Games and I still don't know why they linger on things for so long in that movie. But I do know in this movie why everything takes so long. Like everything feels intentional and nothing
Yeah,
feels like, oh, we're just leading you to the kill. And so many horror films do feel like that, even good ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, I think it's just overall it's so good. And I think like so again, one of See, I don't know if I want to even spoil what happens with the
Yeah, I don't
cops.
know. Just like leave it. Like
Yeah, I think
keep it vague.
overall, this is probably one of my favorite movies in terms of like, especially revenge type and just the way everything works. Like, and but it's also one of those movies where I'm glad that me and William kind of, or like William suggested it because I don't think it takes a lot to watch. You know, like
Yeah.
there almost has to be a reason whether you're showing it to someone or you want to see
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
I'd still
brutal.
say like I would be wary to like be like, oh, let's watch audition. It's like I know, and
Yeah.
you shouldn't be subjected to that, but this is
Yeah.
like not that bad. You know, it's
Yeah.
like okay,
Audition
this
is worse. Yeah.
Audition is like literally hard to watch, whereas this is more like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, but you're never like, I should
Yeah.
turn this off.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah,
kind of having
But
fun.
he's gonna do karate soon, so I'm okay.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Break up the tension with karate.
Yeah.
It's very like because I was like, this is barely this isn't horror, this is like revenge, and then it kind of like cycles back. I'm like, oh, never mind, it is horror again.
Yeah.
Like
It
Yeah.
really did have a lot.
the title's a little
Genres.
misleading because you do think it's going to be something supernatural, but I think that's just maybe
Well, and before we go, I
Difference in
do
like-
want to talk about. So one of the main themes of this is how revenge doesn't really work, and I think this is one of the best movies to kind of show that, like, because the character, like we were saying, like how William was saying, like the serial killer seems to be having a good time, and the secret agent does not. Like he's never happy. He's constant, and it gets worse for him, you know. And I think like it really hits home that the secret agent isn't really like he never feels that cathartic release from it.
Yeah.
And I think like it shows it really well. And it's just like, I don't know, just the way he kind of plays with that theme is just so strong.
Yeah. It's just pointless to fight against something that is just sort of like faceless danger. In a
Right,
way. It's
right.
like this guy doesn't have. He's like, if you want to go like sort of like existential, it's kind of like he's sort of like just Mother Nature. In a
Yeah,
way, right?
yeah. I was
Like,
gonna say the same
you
thing.
can
Yeah.
fight against it if you want to, as much as you want, but like he will never care about you. He will never
Right.
care about anything that you care about, and all you're doing is just wasting all of your energy and losing yourself in this like weird battle against a faceless nightmare.
Yeah, yeah. That's the perfect way to
Concept like
put it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so brutal and so intense. But I think it's well worth a watch whenever it comes back to Hulu. It goes up and down. It was on Amazon Prime for a while. And I always have it on my queue. But it's always like, yeah, I'm not going to watch that today. We'll watch it
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
And yeah, I think I saw it on that. It's one of those movies that kind of jumps streamers, but it's definitely
Yeah.
worth a watch. And it's just, if you want to get into, even though it is brutal, if you wanted to get into like Asian horror, it's a good gateway just because a lot of it is traditional, where like Audition, you're going to be watching it and being like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Where this one, you kind of, it makes sense. It's like very linear, which a lot of Asian horrors don't like to be too linear. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think it was great. I think it's a funny movie if it happens. Like if we show this episode the week after Halloween.
Now
Yeah.
you'd be like, so you missed your chance, idiots.
No, it's like, hey, thanks. Don't we're switching it up from horror for more horror. Like, welcome back.
Yeah. We might cause 2 rents to happen on Amazon Prime. Who's to say?
Yeah, who
That's
knows?
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but good job. Yeah, I think this movie is definitely worth watching. The acting, like the serial killer, does such a great job. It's so
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, it's just so good. What a good movie.
Yeah, that guy's always cool. That guy's always
Yeah,
a good guy.
Hey, Andrew, how come you can pronounce the Korean names better than like a lot of English names on this podcast?
Yeah, I was surprised.
It was like,
I know, I was a little
he-
surprised
Spell it
too.
phonetically
He-
on like Wikipedia.
You're sometimes you're like, oh, this stars Edouard Nortoine. I'm like, I don't know how you got there, but
I just, I'm taking back mispronunciations.
Yeah,
Too
man.
long have they been doing it to us. Now it's my turn.
It's true.
Every time I looked at a name, I was like, "Am I going to pronounce this?" And then I did, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So
Yeah, remember we watched something that had Gabriel Byrne, and you kept on calling him Gabriel Bryan. I was like,
You
Yeah.
know, like a lot of our guest episodes, you'll ask the guests how to pronounce their name, and then you'll be like, "Oh, it's Lucy, right? We're here with Lucia." I'm like, "How? How did
That has
that?"
happened on multiple occasions where I ask them. That's the worst, when I ask them their name, and then just in my intro, I'm like, "Oh shit, I forgot what they said."
Yeah.
25 seconds later,
And their name's
Yeah.
always like Derek's. It's like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's what happens when you're a filmmaker. It's part of my art.
Totally. Keep the people guessing.
Yeah. But thanks, guys. I think this was a great episode. I know we didn't break it down plot wise as usually do, but it's such strong themes, and there's so much in there that I think you guys should discover on your own. That we kind like. I mean, the conversations always just go organically. We never plan it. It's just like sometimes it makes more sense to tell more of the plot, and with movies like this, I feel like. And William, see if you agree with me, but the stronger the themes of the movie, the easier it is to not do like a plot breakdown of the movie.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, the more it like kind of like touches something
Mhm.
inside of you,
Right.
like the easier it is to kind of like
Yeah, it's like you
talk
just
about
kind of have to know it's a cat and mouse. Whereas with Freddy's Dead, you're like, no, I need to explain how insane this movie
Right,
is.
Yeah. You need
They
to
don't get it.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a fun time. But yeah, guys, check it out, and we will see you guys next time on Bomb Squad.
Thanks for watching the Bomb Squad. Please, while you're here, give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it, and it means a lot.